We demystify what goes on behind the therapy room door. Join us on this voyage of discovery and co-creative conversations. This is the Therapy Show, Behind Closed Doors podcast, with Bob Cooke and Jacci Jones.
Welcome back to the next episode of the Therapy Show, Behind Closed Doors, with myself, Jacci Jones, and the ever wonderful Mr. Bob Cooke, who's still got a bit of a cold, but he's soldiering on. And we're up to episode 185, which is amazing. I know, 15, and then we're at the
200
mark. Unheard of for a lot of podcasts, but we're going to get there.
Absolutely.
So the title of this one is Things to Consider After the Christmas Break in the Therapy Room.
Yes, you're right. Now, I have still got this cold and I am still soldiering on. But I like this podcast, particularly that title. So yes, things therapists and counsellors need to consider when they come back after the Christmas break.
Yes.
Full stop. However, I was given some homework at the last podcast.
You were? Did you do it?
Which I've done, and I've looked it up, and I've got the meaning of
I did too. Let's see if we've got the same one.
Okay, so this is in the United Kingdom, because apparently in different parts of the world, there might be different aspects or meanings of Boxing Day. But in the United Kingdom, it's concerned with Victorian values when people quite well off, if you like, their Christmas presents, which they didn't want or they aren't going to use, they box up and give them to their servants or people looked after them for the day after Christmas. So it became known as Boxing Day.
I got that too. What I got here is that these boxes contains gifts, money, or leftovers from the Christmas feast as a token of gratitude for their work throughout the year.
Yeah, hence it became Boxing Day.
Yeah, I think that's quite nice. We should keep that tradition going on Boxing Day.
Yes, I didn't know it was called that. I didn't know it was the reason. So it was some new knowledge for me.
Me too. I thought it was either all the empty boxes that you had left over from Christmas Day, or something to do with a boxing match. Completely wrong.
No religious connotation there at all.
No.
Which is interesting again.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I quite like the meaning of Boxing Day now. Yeah. And well done for doing your homework. I'm impressed.
I know, it's the first thing I did. And apparently Boxing Day in Ireland is called a different name.
Is it really?
Yeah, beginning with a W. I think it's W-R, I couldn't pronounce it, Revin or something, but it's not Boxing Day.
Well, if we have any Irish listeners, then please drop us a comment and let us know what that's all about.
Yeah. Well, that's what I read anyway. Pardon me if it's not correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so good subject. So
that's what day it is today. Boxing Day is when this podcast is released. So we should box up some things and give them to other people. Having said that,
hope you all had a good Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to say then it met your expectations, but 9 times out of 10 it doesn't.
What, Christmas?
Yes.
Well,
which leads us nicely into this. What do we need to consider after the Christmas break in the therapy room?
I'm going to say the same thing as I said. Well, not the same thing, obviously, but a central principle. So usually when I was working clinically with groups, particularly, and seeing clients, I didn't always necessarily come back on the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th. I might come back in the new year. Have a setting, all that lot. I was in the institute the other day and I told my secretary to send an email out to all the therapists to find out how many were coming back on the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th. And I was surprised how many are actually working. So people come back at different times, but I think you need to meet the client where they are.
Yeah.
Which is the same principle as I said last time. And I suppose I think of that throughout the whole of therapy in general, but particularly at Christmas, because of the assumptions people make often around Christmas.
Yeah.
And for many people, it might be a great Christmas. And for many other people, they may have spent it on the streets.
Yes.
They may have
And
had,
it alone. Yeah.
yeah, low. They may have had been triggered over Christmas. They may have found it depressing. Not always do people have wonderful Christmases. So it's important to meet the client where they're at. And I think that's where you should start.
Yeah. I'm sure I've asked this in a podcast before. Would you bring this up as a topic when you see them after Christmas?
Oh, yes,
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. Same as, before Christmas, but also definitely after Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd definitely link in past and present together.
Yeah. And see whether it did meet their expectations or how they felt, or, like you said, where are they now?
Yeah. And usually, of course, I'm looking at how the therapy they've had, I don't know whether it's been a whole year or 2 years or I don't know, 12 weeks, but usually I dealt with long-term clients, has helped with them coping with perhaps new decisions they might have made, how, dealing with Christmas in a resilient way rather than
Yes.
perhaps being
Yeah.
triggered to depths of darkness.
Yeah.
I would also really check up on things. Would check up on things like support mechanisms. You know, if we're talking about Christmas, did you have Christmas by yourself or did you have Christmas alone? I was thinking of my daughter here. Again, I often talk about podcasts, and here I'm talking about her again. But she's a devout Christian, and her husband's a devout Christian. He's 31 and she's 25. And on Christmas Day, they have hired a church hall, I think, and they have invited people who have difficult times or alone and giving them a Christmas dinner.
What a wonderful thing to do.
And that made me think, and why I brought it into the conversation, is I always check up the type
Yeah.
of Christmas people have had, whether they've been alone, whether they have been triggered, what's been happening for them, because it's not only important to know, but it's important in terms of support, particularly, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
They're not that that needs to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm always talking about medication at Christmas time as well. Do people keep them up with their medication? Do they tend to let it lapse? What's happening for them psychologically and mentally over the festive period?
Yeah. I think for me, it's a good opportunity to reflect, like, what were your expectations of Christmas and did it
Yeah.
meet your expectations? And,
Mm,
maybe that's something that we can talk about,
mm.
because it is quite a big thing, which were met, which weren't. Were your expectations realistic? Looking back on it, did you expect too much of yourself and the people around you and things? And what could you have done differently, maybe? Or what would
Yeah,
you have liked to have done differently?
that's it. And also the link to the significant caretakers.
Yes.
So in other words, like when you're talking about support, to talk about, oh, right, so was this a family time for you, or
Yeah.
what was happening? Did you visit your parents, or was it not a family time, or and link it in with their history.
Yeah.
I think I said at the last podcast is that it's a chance for us, especially with the clients we've been seeing for a time, for people to perhaps experiment with new decisions.
Yes.
Might be more healthy than
Yeah.
last time, So, so I'd always check up on how they got on with their new patterns of behaviours or
Yeah.
their healthy coping
I
mechanisms.
like that. I think that's a really good thing to look at, is, new patterns or making a change, or, did they choose to do something different, or would they do something different next year? Or, yeah, absolutely. Because that's what therapy is all about, isn't it? It's, it's looking at how our past affects our present and whether we want it to continue or whether we want to redecide how it's going to be.
Absolutely. And also the other thing to discuss is what now? In other words, okay, we've got the Boxing Day. Okay, now it's going to be the 27th, the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, leading up to the new year. What are you doing in that period? Now the times or the intense pressure, or you might not have seen this pressure, but anyway, expectations, maybe you might not have expectations, but anyway, Christmas and Boxing Day, we're now into maybe a bit of a lull. And has your support mechanisms gone? Are you, what's happening for you at the moment? Is it a time of reconciliation, or what's happening anyway? So it's the same process about, because quite often there's a lull between, you have the Christmas, you have Boxing Day, and then we go into the 27th to 28th, 29th, and the 30th.
There's a come down. There's a definite come down from all the intense pressure, like you said, and the festivities and everything. It's like a period of nothingness before New Year.
Yeah, so I'd check that, check medications. I'd also check up with people who have drink traits.
Yes, yeah.
Because of course, festive periods often connected with drinking. So I'd be interested if they've kept to their plan about, being off drink or cutting down on drink, or what that all means for them. So I would be checking up on things and how they are going to deal with the, let's say, the come down.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's such a thing as the Christmas blues. It's like the build up, the preparation, the anticipation, the expectation and everything. And then suddenly it's gone. And it's a day, in reality. We build up to it. I know we spoke about it in the last podcast that Christmas starts after the 31st of October, really. So there's a 2-month build up to it, and then one day and it's gone. That's it. You're just left with empty boxes and wrapping paper.
Yeah, which you can give to your servants or whatever.
Absolutely. And the leftover turkey. Yeah.
But you are right. That term Christmas blues is, I think, very relevant in the context of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe what they can put in place for this week, what can they do to ease the path from the Christmas and the come down back to normality, because it's a period of floundering for an awful lot of people, I think, before they go back to work on the 2nd or 3rd, whenever they do.
Yeah, and so checking up support, checking up on medication, checking up on alcohol patterns, checking up on drugs, if you like, checking up all the mechanisms people often choose to call coping mechanisms to deal with things that have been difficult for them. So you look at all those things, and I would say you're looking at what I would call mental health resilience.
Yeah. Yeah. What things have they got in place? Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of checklist, if you like, to look at. It's often a very difficult time for people, the Christmas blues, if you want to call it that. And again, particularly around support.
Yes.
Now, for some people, of course, because the therapist is away 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe even, and perhaps we could have talked about in the last podcast, and I don't think I did, you give out numbers, Samaritan numbers and actual ports of call where they can go to. And I think you might do it in this period as well. But you need, first of all, to check out what their support is. If they're homeless, if they haven't got any support, then you think about, well, how can we help these people reach out to support if they can, and where do they go?
Yes.
How do they do that whilst we're off the therapy, whether it's 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever it is?
Yeah. I've got that in my contract that I don't offer a 24-hour emergency service. So I've got the Samaritans and the local helplines and everything. But yeah, it's a good reminder to pass that information on for people when
Yeah, I was thinking of my daughter again and the scheme they're going to be doing as you and me are talking. I did it last year, and I thought about it last year, and how it's okay doing it, and they got quite a good turnout because they're part of a church community. So the
Yes.
church community would let people know this facility is available for
Yeah.
people having a difficult time or lack support or feel alone or depressed over Christmas. Right. So that's in the church community. And I was just thinking, well, perhaps therapists need to think about looking outside where these sorts of things are on, if you like, um, and being able to have a list of support places
Yes. Yeah.
that
Local to them. Yeah.
clients could go to. But I hadn't actually thought that until this minute that therapists working in Wythenshawe, which is the area I'm talking about, probably don't even know that John and Jessica's support event, if you want to call it, is even happening.
Yeah. Because
Church
often
community, yes, but
church
not for
events
therapists.
aren't just for the people that,
No,
that go to
no,
worship there. They're open to
no.
everybody.
Oh, this is
Absolutely.
definitely open to everybody. But how
Yeah.
many people know is another story, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how many therapists think outside the box in terms of looking into areas of support for their clients in these particular times.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of the clients might not need it, but there will be some, I suspect, which it might be useful for them to know.
Yeah. Because it does sound, I don't know, because it is such a difficult time of year for an awful lot of people, and people, obviously come to see us because they've got issues. For us to not be working for a week or, 10 days maybe,
Mm.
for some people might sound a little bit harsh or uncaring. But we've got to think about our own mental health at these times as well, because just like everybody else, we've got a Christmas past and a Christmas present, so we need to take care of ourselves. And, what are your thoughts on having a week off or 10 days?
Mm. Well, I think therapists are human
Yeah.
and need to recharge their batteries. And when can you do it? Now, you could say, right, I'll work over Christmas and I'll have these 10 days off at another time when perhaps it's less evocative in terms of the things we're talking about. However, we've got families, we've got we have to. Who cares for the carers?
Yes,
That
exactly.
phrase that
Yeah.
we have to do that.
And there is such a thing as compassion fatigue. We need to take care of ourselves. If we're working all year and the run up to Christmas can be quite difficult for us as well.
Mm.
We do need to, there's self-care and prioritizing us. But it is something that's been asked of me before. Why do you take a break at this time of year when most people really need support?
Well, the question is, well, back again. Well, where I'd be saying to the person, besides all the things you've just saying, I'd also be saying, well, when would you like me to take it off then?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
then, so when
hopefully,
it's less evocative, well, how do we know when things are less evocative?
yeah. And hopefully the work has been done on the run up to Christmas. We will have done a lot of talking about the support network and how's it going to be for you, and expectations and what you've got planned and all
Mm.
those sorts of things. So it's not like we're just disappearing on them.
No, no, that's what I'm saying. We need to look at all these things, support medications, support places, um, all these different things. We need to take into account in the run up to Christmas,
Yeah.
so they have things in place for when we're away.
Yeah. So when we do come
And of
back to
course,
the
we're not indispensable. At one level, we're not indispensable. I think it's important for people to remember that, because if we get into a place where we think we're totally indispensable for people, then it's a slippery road.
Absolutely. Yeah. And hopefully the work that we will have done with the clients prior to this you know, we'll have built resilience and things like that around, because, you know, we have holidays, we have illnesses, we're not there all the time for the client. There will be periods where we're not. Yeah.
You could even say in another way around that this is a good practice for seeing how people deal with maybe more difficult times, or times when you haven't got access to therapy, because down the road therapy will end.
Yeah. And it's like you say, it's a good time to bring that in and have that discussion on how has it been for them. You know, how did it pan out? Did they do anything differently than what they have
I
previously?
might come back and say, do you know, it was fine. I was really dreading how it would be. You wouldn't be around. We talked a lot about support and everything else, but it was a really good time. I listened to the things you said. I heard your voice in my head. I put in new ways of thinking and a new script on the road. And I was surprised how well I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So having that reflection and that time on their own can be a really positive thing. And, it's a space to celebrate as well, that they did do okay.
Mm, mm. And also, and we haven't mentioned it at all yet, there's the religious factor of Christmas. So, my daughter's devout Christian, her husband's devout Christian, and many of clients will be Christian as well. So, I think, and many won't be,
Yeah.
but they're good discussions to have. What does it all mean? And as I say, the biggest thing I think, because therapy will stop eventually, it's a good chance to test out people's mental health resilience.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, without doubt.
Yeah. And to bring it back and discuss it in the therapy room.
Oh, that's the bit.
What
to bring it
worked,
back
what
and discuss
didn't.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always think that when I always used to think that while I had holidays and all various other things, that it was also a chance to see how people's mental health resilience fared up.
Yeah. I think we've spoke about this in past podcasts as well, about, for some clients that maybe are apprehensive about that separation, to have some sort of a constant object that they maybe have to carry them through. And you've done that in the past. I've been quite reluctant to.
I do that quite regularly. And when I went to therapy, well, God, this is a long time ago, right at the beginning of therapy. But I always remember my therapist. I don't know if she had a lot of them, or she actually, it was one of her sort of necklaces, or crucifix, I think, that she passed on to me. I can't quite remember. It's 30, 40 years ago. But I found it very reassuring psychologically.
Yeah. So again, that's something that, can be looked at prior to it, and then maybe discuss how it was, how it felt. Did you need it? Did you just shove it in a drawer and forget about it?
I used to give out magic gems. So I went to India, I remember, and got a lot of magic gems. They were like coloured pebbles, if you like, off the shamans. I had lots of them. I must have had at least 200 of them.
Wow.
At various times when I was away or things like that, I'd often give them to my clients as a way of a constant object, and to remember my, words if they needed them at soothing times.
Yeah.
They're called positive constant objects. And if you think back to child development times, in the terms of separation from very young, children will carry, or toddlers will carry, what we call transitional objects to remind them, of their mother.
Yeah. And
So
it's worth remembering that a lot of the time they will be in their child ego state during this, when, they're separated from us. So, yeah.
So it's very common practice, and something I would certainly, and did do.
Yeah. So there's lots of things that we can do to aid our clients in this period, the come down and the not seeing us for a period of time and things like that. The
Yeah,
preparation work and then to reflect on how it was, I think, is really important.
I think the most tip to everybody listening, really, don't underestimate the challenges that breaks and the festive period particularly might bring to your clients.
Yeah.
Always inquire, even
Yes.
if they seem celebratory, because they might actually be, saying they have a good time and being happy because they're adapting to the expectations of Christmas or even the therapist.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to not underestimate the challenges Christmas might bring for clients.
Yeah. But also it might be a time for celebration.
Oh
They
yeah,
might have
could be
put
the
new
opposite.
things on the road. They might have used this
Yeah.
year as the year to make new decisions and everything, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So it needs inquiry by the therapist, though.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I encourage my clients to do is to be curious about what was different for them and how did that make them feel, or if it's the same, what feelings did you have around that? To just be curious about.
Yeah, therapists need to check out and talk about the process after the festive period has ended.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
What a wonderful podcast again. We're kind of closing
Zooming
up
on.
the festive season now, aren't we? And
We are.
looking forward
New
and
year
new
soon.
beginnings and things. Yeah.
New year 2025, Jackie.
I know. I can remember when I was younger thinking that the year 2000 was so far away and that I'd be really old in the year 2000. And here we are coming up to 2025. And I am really old.
Well, we are heading towards 2025. So I will enjoy seeing you in the new year.
Absolutely. Yes. So until next time, Bob, where we will be talking around new beginnings.
In the new year.
Yes.
And what that means for therapists and clients.
See you next time.
See you next time.
You've been listening to The Therapy Show, Behind Closed Doors podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We'll be back next week with another episode.